I listened to a whole lot of Red. I'm like, cool. Like, this is not for me, And then it became like the biggest record in the world. I think that album, more so than almost any other album in recent memory, to me really sort of symbolized like, oh, you are kind of out of step with these kids these days. Because to me, I didn't really find it that cool or interesting, and clearly like a whole generation of kids did. So and I can accept that when that does happen, because if I had listened to it and I loved it, I would be on the podcast saying that I loved it. And there's been a lot of times that I listened to music where it clearly wasn't for me, but I still got it. But even that right there is like, if I had taken more time with that album and listened to it a few more times and not felt the need to talk about it online immediately after, maybe I could have like been a little bit more open-minded. Like maybe the rush to have opinions about it online kind of killed it for me. You were a fan of it?
Absolutely not.
Oh, okay.
I called it like one of the worst things that I listened to that year.
Yeah.
It was I couldn't stand it. But the thing was that I feel like that album, it attracted a ton of people because it was happening during the same era as like hyperpop was going on.
Yeah.
So I think it attracted a lot of those fans, because when I see the majority of Playboi Carti fans or stans now, and just the way that they kind of talk on the internet, I'm like, these guys are not originally from the hip hop sphere. They're kind of like a little bit outside, and they got dragged into Playboi Carti specifically. So for the most hip hop fans, even like people that liked older Carti, because I loved Self-Titled. Great album. I enjoyed it so much. Die Lit, I was not really a fan of. I like Self-Titled more, but a whole lot of Red, I just couldn't. I can't listen to it again. And I think that's what he did. Don't consider him a great performer. I think people just like the environment of going to his shows. I do think he puts production value into it.
Right.
But to call him a great performer is insane, to compare him to just even a Travis Scott or
It's pretty low effort.
a J. Cole or somebody that's actually putting in crazy amounts of effort. He's just screeching into a mic.
Right.
And then lets people do whatever the hell they want.
The thing with Carti is that, to me, I do think that like musically he's continued to keep his fans on the hook, like he definitely continues to do interesting things and to keep them interested for sure. But I feel like everything else surrounding him as an artist is very well done. Like he's really just created this aura of cool around himself. He's just managed to be rare in situations where like almost no artists from that generation were, like if you look at somebody like Lil Yachty, I mean, Lil Yachty and Playboi Carti really came from like the same class essentially. But with Yachty, it's like he will hop on a record with anyone. He's put out fucking 10 albums in the time that it's taken Carti to put out like 2, right? I mean, maybe not 10, but a lot. He's experimented with a ton of different sounds. He's really like, he's done commercial records. He's done like a million different things. He's done a million interviews. He's like, whatever. He's just done everything. And like Carti in comparison has just managed to really keep his fans just wanting more, where like every tweet is just tantalizing to them, like he really is like a real artist in that sense. He's like really kind of shut himself off from a lot of the things that rappers do. And I think that that's got that's got like a lot of importance in terms of why he's managed to like cultivate this audience.
Yeah. I think it's partially his own doing, but I also think it's because who he was associating himself with when he first got on. Because at that time, 2014 was maybe when I first heard of Playboi Carti. It was like young Zanho era, before Broke Boy. Ian Connor was rolling with them. And back then, like Ian Connor was like that cool guy on the internet that the young demographic loved. And he kept Playboi Carti. He was the mouthpiece for Playboi Carti. Right. And he was like, yo, you just roll around with me. He was kind of Ian Connor's sidekick for a while.
Oh, definitely. And his shooter, basically. He's beating the fuck out of Kerwin for him. Yeah,
exactly. So then that happens, and then he links up with A$AP Rocky. And then A$AP Rocky is A$AP Rocky. Mm-hmm. Like A$AP, they had the whole Cozy Tapes thing going on. A$AP Rocky's just known for being cool. Right. He's a cool dude. And that kept moving on. He was on some tapes with them, on some songs that did well. I think he was also on that song with Frank Ocean, if I recall correctly.
But for me, when it really like became clear, like, oh, this is a thing, is when I was on that Smoke Perp and Lil Pump tour. And I think that right around then was when, what was that fucking song? I woke up to Acting Like Me.
Woke Up Like This.
Dude, that song, like, I don't know if it came out during that trip or it just like hit during that trip, but it was like everything. Like it just became everything. And I don't know. It was hard to imagine things being the same after that.
And he was with Uzi too.
Yeah.
So he was kind of like, Uzi was doing everything. Uzi was really popping.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like these people did the press for him. So he was able to stay rare.
Yeah.
Because there's other artists that have made good music and they try to do it, but you need something associated with you that's gonna, you know, put out information on your behalf to keep people engaged.
But it's interesting when I give Carti points for being so rare and everything. I mean, some of the dudes that we really like congratulate at this point would be somebody like YoungBoy. He consistently puts out music over and over and over. And when you look at the sort of like arms race for the people's hearts between like Dirk, YoungBoy, Kodak, Elite Chapo, whoever, like all these dudes that you sort of put in this like similar category where like I feel like the fans could kind of go, a large percent of fans could go either way, with like those being kind of like their favorite rappers, sort of similar stylistically and everything. YoungBoy, like through being really consistent and dropping a ton of music, I think that that's been a huge asset in his whole ascent. Whereas with Carti, I'm giving him props for barely putting music out and waiting fucking 5 years to drop a project and shit like that. But then you look at somebody like Roddy Ricch. Roddy Ricch thought that he was Kendrick. He thought he was Carti. He thought that he could take fucking 2 years off, not put an album out, whatever, and then drop an album, and that the people were just going to go nuts for it. And I think he kind of got a reality check of like, oh, fuck, maybe you weren't in the position to take so much time off.
Yeah.